This monk is supporting his entire body weight on one finger, and he built this strength without ever touching a weight, drinking a protein shake, or taking a single supplement. In fact, the methods Shaolin monks use to develop their strength are so different from modern training that most people wouldn't even recognize them as exercise. Today, if you want to get strong, you're told you need heavy weights, protein supplements, complex training splits, and cutting-edge equipment. But for over 1,500 years, Shaolin monks have been building levels of strength that seem physically impossible. Using none of these things, they look lean, almost frail. You'd walk past them on the street and never give them a second glance. But these men could uproot 770-pound trees with their bare hands, pull out thousands of rusted nails with their fingers, and perform feats of strength that still baffle scientists today. So how did they do it? What did these monks know about building strength that we've completely forgotten? The answer isn't what you think, and it challenges everything modern fitness culture tells us about how strength is built, because while we're focused on muscle size, Shaolin monks were focused on something completely different. Let me show you what they knew. When a young monk arrived at the Shaolin temple, one of the first things he was assigned was a tree. Not to climb, not to chop down, to pull out of the ground. Every single day, the monk would wrap his arms around that tree and try to uproot it. He'd squeeze, he'd pull, he'd strain with everything he had. For months, nothing would happen. For years, that tree wouldn't budge an inch, but the monk kept pulling, day after day, year after year. And here's what's brilliant about this. As the monk grew, the tree grew alongside him. The resistance increased naturally, progressively, perfectly matched to his developing strength. Eventually, after years of daily practice, he could shake the trunk hard enough to drop a few leaves, then more leaves, then branches, and finally, after perhaps a decade of daily effort, he could uproot the entire tree. Some monks uprooted trees weighing over 770 pounds, with their bare hands. No equipment, just years of consistent, patient practice. Over a span of many years, a student built immense physical strength in their chest, arms, stomach, and back. Strength that went deeper than muscle, into tendons, bones, and connective tissue. But it gets even more extreme. To build finger strength, monks would take 108 nails and drive them into a wooden plank. Every single day, they'd practice pulling them out using only 3 fingers, the thumb, index, and middle finger. When that became easy, they'd switch to their weaker fingers, the ring finger and pinky. When that became easy, the nails would be driven deeper into the wood. And here's where it gets insane. After completing the first stage, the nails were sprinkled with water and left to rust. Advanced students would work toward pulling out 1,000 rusted nails. The rust made them harder to grip, caused their skin to blister and crack, made every pull excruciating. Masters of this technique could remove rusted nails with just 2 fingers. Some could do it with just 1. In combat, this meant a Shaolin monk's fingers were so incredibly strong that if they got hold of you, there was no wriggling free. They could find vulnerable nerves and pressure points on your body and lock onto them with a grip that was absolutely unbreakable. Late Shaolin monk Haideng demonstrated the ultimate expression of this training, a one-finger handstand, supporting almost his entire body weight on a single finger. Think about that. Not a one-arm push-up, a one-finger handstand. The amount of strength required in the tendons, bones, and connective tissue of that single finger is almost incomprehensible. And they did this every single day, 7 days a week, 5:30 in the morning until 6 at night, 12.5 hours of training, no rest days, no deload weeks, just a 30-minute nap after lunch to store energy for the afternoon, all on a diet of mantao, steamed wheat bread, and copious vegetables. No protein powder, no creatine, no supplements, no meal timing strategies, just bread, vegetables, and tea. Despite their lean physique, Shaolin monks possessed astonishing strength through bodyweight training, flexibility, and endurance, unlike bodybuilders who focused on muscle size. Here's what modern fitness gets completely wrong. We're obsessed with muscle size. Bigger biceps, thicker chest, more mass. We measure progress in pounds of muscle gained. But Shaolin monks weren't training for size. They were training for function. And there's a massive difference. Bodybuilders isolate muscles. They do bicep curls to work the biceps, leg extensions to work the quads, chest flies to work the pecs. Monks trained complete systems. When they pulled on that tree, they engaged their hands, forearms, biceps, shoulders, back, core, legs, and feet, all at once, working together as a unified system. Bodybuilders train in sets and reps, 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8. They're chasing the pump, the burn, the immediate feedback. Monks trained in hours and years. They'd hold positions until their legs screamed. They'd pull on trees every day for a decade. They weren't looking for instant gratification. Bodybuilders focus on recovery, rest days, deload weeks. They're terrified of overtraining. Monks focused on adaptation. They trained through fatigue, through pain, through the point where most people would quit. They understood that the body adapts to whatever stress you consistently place on it. They built lean, dense muscle through progressive resistance over decades, not through shortcuts, not through hacks, through patience. Our whole body is the machine. You don't need external weights when you learn to use your own body weight as progressive resistance. This isn't legend. This isn't exaggeration. Scientists have actually documented these abilities. Studies comparing traditional resistance training to calisthenics and bodyweight training found both produced identical gains in compound movements like squats and deadlifts. The Shaolin monks proved this 1,500 years ago. They just didn't publish it in a peer-reviewed journal. Masters can strike with enough force to break stones with their bare hands. They can generate impacts that conventional strength training doesn't explain. Their finger strength allows them to grip and lock in ways that biomechanics experts say shouldn't be possible with such lean frames. The key insight that modern fitness has forgotten: functional strength, the kind built through progressive bodyweight training over extended periods of time, can exceed the raw strength of someone twice your size. Size doesn't always equal strength, and strength doesn't always look the way we expect it to. So what can we learn from this? What can we actually apply? First, size doesn't equal strength. The Shaolin monks looked ordinary, lean, unassuming, but they possessed extraordinary abilities. They're proof that you can be incredibly strong without looking like you stepped out of a bodybuilding magazine. Second, progressive overload doesn't require weight plates. Your body adapts to whatever resistance you consistently provide. Whether that's iron plates in a gym or a tree you're trying to uproot every single day, the principle is the same: consistent challenge over time. Third, time beats intensity. We're obsessed with 6-week transformations, 12-week programs, quick fixes. But Shaolin monks thought in terms of decades. They understood that real, deep strength, the kind that goes into your bones and tendons and nervous system, takes time to build. And finally, patience is a training method. The monk who pulls on the same tree for 3 years without any visible progress isn't wasting his time. He's building strength at the deepest level, in tendons, bones, connective tissue, and neural pathways that superficial muscle can't touch. He's building the kind of strength that lasts a lifetime, the kind that doesn't disappear if you take a few weeks off, the kind that becomes part of who you are. Modern fitness culture tells us we need more weight, more supplements, more equipment, more programs, more complexity. But the Shaolin monks proved that with nothing but your body, progressive challenge, and decades of consistent practice, you can build strength that seems superhuman. They didn't look strong. They weren't massive. They weren't shredded. They looked like regular guys in simple robes, but they could do things most people would call impossible. They could support their entire body weight on one finger. They could uproot trees that weighed hundreds of pounds. They could generate striking force that shattered stone, all without ever stepping foot in a gym. Maybe the question isn't whether their methods work. The scientific evidence shows they do. Maybe the real question is whether we have the patience to try them. Because in a world obsessed with instant results, the Shaolin monks remind us of something we've forgotten. True strength isn't built in weeks or months. It's built in years and decades. And it doesn't always look the way you'd expect.